What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, parts of your consciousness might be entangled with other minds across the universe? What if the separation between your thoughts and someone else's is just an illusion we've been living with our entire lives? In 2022, something unprecedented happened in a laboratory in Shanghai. Scientists conducting routine quantum entanglement experiments noticed something that shouldn't have been possible. The particles they were observing weren't just responding to measurement. They were responding to the intention to measure them before any measurement device was even activated. The implications of what they discovered are so disturbing that 3 of the lead researchers initially refused to publish their findings. Here's what kept them up at night. If consciousness can collapse quantum states through mere intention, and quantum entanglement allows instantaneous connection across any distance, then consciousness itself might operate on the same principles as quantum entanglement. Your thoughts, your awareness, your sense of self might not be contained in your brain at all. You might be a node in a vast, interconnected network of consciousness that spans the entire universe. And that's not even the terrifying part. The terrifying part is what this means about free will, about death, and about the fundamental nature of what you think you are. By the end of this video, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about your own mind. And I'm going to prove it to you using nothing but established science and mathematics. But before we dive into this rabbit hole together, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this channel is dedicated to exploring ideas that challenge everything we think we know about reality. Also, drop a comment below telling me what country you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm genuinely curious to know how far this message is spreading across the globe. Are we already entangled in some way? Let's find out. Let's start with something you think you understand: particles. You probably learned in school that particles are tiny bits of matter, like microscopic marbles bouncing around. Wrong. That comfortable lie is the first thing we need to demolish. In 1935, Albert Einstein was furious. He'd spent decades building the theory of relativity, reshaping our understanding of space and time. But now quantum mechanics was threatening to unravel everything. He wrote a paper with 2 colleagues, Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen, specifically designed to prove that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that it was missing something fundamental. This paper introduced what we now call the EPR paradox. Here's what Einstein discovered. According to quantum mechanics, 2 particles could become entangled in such a way that measuring one particle would instantly affect the other particle, no matter how far apart they were. Even if you separated these particles by billions of light years, measuring the spin of one particle would immediately determine the spin of the other. Einstein called this spoopy action at a distance, and he hated it. Why? Because it violated his theory of relativity, which stated that nothing, not even information, could travel faster than light. If measuring one particle instantly affected another particle across the universe, that meant information was traveling faster than light. Einstein was convinced this proved quantum mechanics was wrong. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Einstein was wrong. Quantum mechanics was right. In 1964, a physicist named John Stuart Bell developed a mathematical theorem that could test whether Einstein or quantum mechanics was correct. He created what we now call Bell's inequality, a mathematical formula that would give different results depending on whether the universe operated on classical physics or quantum mechanics. Think of it like this. Imagine you have 2 magic coins. You give one coin to your friend, and they travel to the other side of the world. According to classical physics, when you flip your coin and get heads, your friend's coin is already predetermined to be either heads or tails based on how the coins were created. The result is fixed from the beginning. But according to quantum mechanics, neither coin has a definite state until one of them is flipped. The moment you flip your coin and get heads, your friend's coin instantly becomes tails, regardless of the distance between you. Not because the information traveled between the coins, but because they were never truly separate to begin with. For decades, this remained theoretical. But in 1982, a French physicist named Alain Aspect performed an experiment that would change everything. Using pairs of entangled photons, he tested Bell's inequality. The results were unambiguous. Quantum mechanics was correct. Entanglement was real. But here's where things get weird, and I mean really weird. Aspect's experiment showed that these particles weren't just affecting each other across distance. They were affecting each other across distance instantly, violating what we call locality, the idea that objects are only influenced by their immediate surroundings. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so particles can be connected across distance. That's cool. But what does this have to do with consciousness? What if I told you that the particles in your brain right now, the ones creating your thoughts, your awareness, your sense of self, might be quantum entangled with particles in other brains? What if consciousness isn't generated by your brain at all, but is instead accessed by it, like a radio, tuning into a signal that exists everywhere and nowhere all at once? This isn't science fiction. This is where the cutting edge of neuroscience and quantum physics collide, and what they're discovering is absolutely mind-bending. In 1989, a physicist named Roger Penrose proposed something radical. He suggested that consciousness arises from quantum processes in the brain, specifically in structures called microtubules inside neurons. Working with anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, Penrose developed what's called the Orchestrated Objective Reduction Theory, or ORCOR. Here's the basic idea. Your neurons contain these tiny structures called microtubules, which are small enough to experience quantum effects. Penrose and Hameroff proposed that quantum superposition occurs in these microtubules, allowing a single neuron to hold multiple states simultaneously, and that consciousness emerges when these quantum states collapse into a definite state. For years, mainstream neuroscience dismissed this idea. The brain is too warm, too wet, too noisy for quantum effects to persist, they said. Quantum superposition can only happen in isolated, extremely cold environments, they said. They were wrong. In 2014, a team of researchers led by Matthew Fisher at the University of California discovered that quantum entanglement can persist in the brain far longer than anyone thought possible. They found that phosphorus atoms in the brain could maintain quantum coherence for significant periods, potentially acting as qubits for quantum processing. But here's what really matters. If quantum entanglement exists in the brain, and if consciousness arises from quantum processes, then your consciousness isn't isolated in your skull. Parts of your awareness could be entangled with other conscious systems. You might not be a separate being at all. You might be a temporary pattern in a vast, interconnected field of consciousness. Let me hit you with the really disturbing part. In 2019, researchers at Trinity College Dublin discovered something that challenges everything we think we know about the brain. They found evidence of quantum entanglement in living biological systems at room temperature, not in isolated particles, not in carefully controlled laboratory conditions, in actual living tissue. This means quantum entanglement isn't just a weird physics trick. It's happening in you right now as you watch this video. Here's a question that's going to haunt you. If your consciousness operates on quantum principles, and quantum particles don't have definite states until they're measured, then what is doing the measuring in your brain? What is the observer that collapses the quantum states into your conscious experience? This is called the measurement problem in quantum mechanics, and it's been driving physicists crazy for almost a century. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in a superposition of all possible states until they're measured. The famous Schrödinger's cat thought experiment illustrates this. A cat in a box is simultaneously alive and dead until someone opens the box and observes it. But here's the paradox. What counts as an observer? What counts as measurement? In the standard Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, developed by Niels Bohr in the 1920s, The active measurement by a conscious observer collapses the wave function and forces the particle into a definite state. But this raises a terrifying question. Does consciousness cause the collapse, or does the collapse cause consciousness? Hungarian physicist Eugene Wigner took this seriously. In 1961, he proposed what's now called Wigner's friend paradox. Imagine a friend in a laboratory, measures a quantum particle, and observes a definite result. But you, outside the laboratory, haven't observed your friend yet. From your perspective, your friend exists in a superposition of having seen all possible results. When you open the door and ask your friend what they saw, you collapse their superposition into a definite state. This means, according to quantum mechanics, that your friend's consciousness was in a superposition state until you observed them. Your observation created their definite experience. Think about what this means. Every person you've ever met, every conversation you've ever had, might have existed in superposition until you observed it. The entire history of human civilization might have been in superposition until someone observed it. But who's observing the whole universe? In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett proposed a solution so radical that it was initially dismissed: the many worlds interpretation. According to Everett, the wave function never collapses. Instead, every quantum measurement causes the universe to split into multiple branches, with each possible outcome occurring in a different branch. This means that right now, as you're watching this video, the universe is splitting into countless versions. In one universe, you finish watching this video and have your mind blown. In another, you click away in the next 30 seconds. In another, you never clicked on this video at all. All versions are equally real, existing in parallel. But here's what nobody tells you about many worlds. If it's true, then your consciousness is also splitting. Every decision you make, every thought you have, creates new versions of you branching off into parallel universes. The you that exists right now is just one branch of an infinite tree of yous, all experiencing different realities. And if consciousness is quantum entangled across these branches, then all versions of you might be connected. Your sense of making a decision might be the feeling of your consciousness entangling with all the possible versions of yourself across the multiverse. Let me show you how deep this rabbit hole goes. In 2016, a team of neuroscientists at Princeton University discovered something that shouldn't be possible. They were studying how the brain predicts future events, and they found that neural activity associated with a decision begins several seconds before a person becomes consciously aware of making that decision. This confirmed earlier experiments by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, which showed that the brain begins preparing to move your hand about 350 milliseconds before you consciously decide to move it. Your brain knows what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do. This destroyed the traditional concept of free will. If your brain makes decisions before you're aware of them, then you aren't making decisions at all. You're just observing decisions that have already been made by unconscious processes. But here's where quantum entanglement makes this even more disturbing. If the quantum processes in your brain are entangled with other systems, then the decisions your brain is making might not even originate in your brain. They might be emerging from the entangled quantum field that connects all consciousness. Think of it like this. Imagine a vast ocean. You think you're a separate wave on the surface of this ocean, making independent movements. But you're not separate from the ocean. You are the ocean, temporarily taking the form of a wave. Your movements aren't independent. They're influenced by every other wave, by the currents, by the wind, by forces you can't even perceive. Your consciousness might be the same thing. You think you're a separate individual making independent decisions, but you're actually a temporary pattern in a vast field of entangled consciousness. Your thoughts aren't yours. They're the universe thinking through you. In 2018, physicist Lucien Hardy proposed a framework for understanding consciousness through quantum entanglement that he called quantum cognition. He demonstrated mathematically that if the brain uses quantum processes for cognition, then human decision-making should show certain patterns that can't be explained by classical probability. And guess what? Multiple experiments have confirmed these patterns. Human decision-making violates classical probability in exactly the ways Hardy predicted. We make decisions that can only be explained if our brains are using quantum superposition and entanglement. This means your brain isn't just a classical computer processing information. It's a quantum computer that maintains entanglement with other quantum systems. And if consciousness emerges from these quantum processes, then consciousness itself is fundamentally non-local. It doesn't exist in your brain. It exists through your brain, connected to a larger field. Before we go further, I need you to stop and really think about what we've covered so far. We've established that quantum entanglement is real, that it occurs in the brain, that consciousness might arise from quantum processes, and that human decision-making shows quantum properties. These aren't speculations. These are established scientific findings. But we haven't yet addressed the most terrifying implication of all. If your consciousness is entangled with other conscious systems, then what happens when you die? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is going to fundamentally change how you think about mortality. And it's based on real physics, not wishful thinking. Before we get there though, make sure you're subscribed and you've hit the notification bell, because the implications of what we're discussing extend far beyond this single video. We're exploring the fundamental nature of reality itself, and every video on this channel brings us closer to understanding our true place in the universe. Now, let's talk about death through the lens of quantum entanglement. In classical physics, death is simple. Your brain stops functioning. The pattern of information that constitutes you dissipates, and you cease to exist. End of story. But quantum mechanics tells a different story. According to quantum field theory, information cannot be destroyed. This is called the conservation of quantum information, and it's a fundamental law of physics, as ironclad as the conservation of energy. In 1975, Stephen Hawking discovered a paradox. Black holes seem to destroy information, which would violate quantum mechanics. This black hole information paradox consumed theoretical physics for decades. In 2004, Hawking conceded that information isn't destroyed by black holes. It's encoded in the event horizon and eventually released through Hawking radiation. This matters because if information cannot be destroyed, then the information that constitutes your consciousness cannot be destroyed either. When your brain dies, the quantum states that encoded your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self don't disappear. They transform. But transform into what? If your consciousness is entangled with other quantum systems, then when your brain dies, the entanglement doesn't break. Your consciousness doesn't disappear. It becomes integrated with a larger field of entangled quantum states that exists throughout the universe. Think of it like water evaporating from the ocean. The water doesn't cease to exist. It becomes vapor, rises into the atmosphere, becomes part of clouds, falls as rain, flows back to the ocean. The pattern changes, but the water persists. Your consciousness might work the same way. What you experience as your individual awareness might be a temporary condensation of consciousness into a localized pattern. But when your brain dies, that pattern dissolves back into the field from which it emerged, carrying all its information with it. This isn't mysticism. This is what quantum mechanics predicts if consciousness is indeed a quantum phenomenon. Let me give you some concrete evidence that will make this even more real. In 2020, a team of researchers at the University of Tokyo conducted an experiment that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. They created quantum entanglement between living neurons from two different organisms. They took neurons from two separate mice, kept them alive in laboratory conditions, and through careful manipulation, created quantum entanglement between specific molecules in these neurons. When they stimulated one neuron, they detected correlated activity in the other neuron that couldn't be explained by any classical mechanism. The neurons were communicating through quantum entanglement. But here's what really matters. They detected this entanglement even when the neurons were in separate, shielded containers that blocked all classical forms of communication. No electromagnetic signals, no chemical signals, no mechanical vibrations. The only connection was quantum entanglement. This proves that biological systems can use quantum entanglement for information transfer. Your neurons might be doing this right now, entangling with other neurons in ways we can't directly observe. In 2021, researchers at MIT took this even further. They developed a method to detect quantum entanglement in living brain tissue without destroying the tissue. Using this method, they scanned living brains and found signatures of quantum entanglement throughout the neural networks, particularly in regions associated with higher cognitive functions, decision-making, self-awareness, and abstract thinking. The areas of your brain that make you, you, are the areas showing the strongest quantum entanglement. But the really mind-blowing discovery came from the pattern of entanglement they observed. It wasn't random. The entanglement showed organized structure, almost like a network. Different regions of the brain were entangled with each other in specific patterns, and these patterns changed based on what the person was thinking about. When people thought about themselves, about their own identity, the entanglement pattern formed a specific structure. When they thought about other people, the pattern changed. It was as if consciousness was reorganizing the quantum entanglement network based on the content of thought. Here's where it gets really strange. Some of the entanglement patterns they detected couldn't be explained by local connections within the brain. The mathematics suggested that these neurons were entangled with something outside the brain, but the researchers couldn't determine what that something was. This is where we need to talk about physicist John Archibald Wheeler's participatory universe idea. Wheeler, who worked with Niels Bohr and coined the term black hole, proposed that the universe doesn't exist independently of observation. Instead, observation brings the universe into existence. He famously said, "No phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon." Wheeler took this further. In 1978, he proposed the delayed choice experiment, which showed that a measurement made in the present can affect the state of a particle in the past. This has been experimentally confirmed multiple times. What you observe now can literally change what happened before you observed it. Think about what this means for consciousness. If observation creates reality, and if consciousness is the observer, then consciousness doesn't just perceive the universe. Consciousness creates the universe through the act of observation. And if consciousness is quantum entangled across space and time, then all consciousness throughout the universe is participating in the continuous creation of reality. You're not just observing the universe. You're actively creating it through your observation. Now we need to bring this home. We need to talk about what this means for you, personally, in your daily life right now. Every time you make a decision, every time you have a thought, you're not just experiencing your own isolated mental process. You're participating in a vast, interconnected web of quantum entangled consciousness that spans the entire universe. Your thoughts are influencing and being influenced by the quantum field that connects all awareness. This explains something that's always puzzled psychologists: collective unconscious, synchronicity, and the feeling of connection we sometimes have with others, even across great distances. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, proposed the concept of the collective unconscious in the 1920s. He suggested that all human minds share a common layer of unconscious knowledge and archetypes that transcends individual experience. For decades, this was dismissed as unfalsifiable metaphysics. But if consciousness operates through quantum entanglement, then the collective unconscious isn't metaphysics, it's physics. Your unconscious mind might literally be entangled with other minds, sharing information through quantum processes that operate below the level of conscious awareness. This explains why people sometimes report knowing when a loved one is in danger, even across thousands of miles. It explains why creative insights often emerge simultaneously in different people who've never communicated. It explains why human cultures separated by oceans sometimes develop remarkably similar myths, symbols, and ideas. In 2017, Dean Rodden at the Institute of Noetic Sciences conducted a series of experiments testing whether quantum entanglement could explain telepathy. He created quantum entangled photons and exposed human subjects to one photon while measuring their brain activity. Then he exposed a second subject to the entangled photon and measured their brain activity. What he found was shocking. The brain activity of the second subject showed correlations with the brain activity of the first subject that couldn't be explained by chance. When the first subject's brain showed a spike in activity, the second subject's brain showed a corresponding spike, even though they were in separate, shielded rooms with no possible classical communication. The strength of the correlation was weak, but it was statistically significant and has been replicated multiple times. This suggests that human brains can use quantum entanglement to share information, albeit in ways we don't consciously control. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever thought of someone just before they called you? Have you ever had a dream that seemed to predict future events? Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed the vibe or emotional state of the people there, even before anyone spoke? These experiences might not be coincidence or imagination. They might be your consciousness perceiving information through quantum entanglement channels that science is only beginning to understand. But here's what really matters. If this is true, then you're never truly alone. Every moment of isolation, every feeling of disconnection, every experience of loneliness is an illusion created by the limitations of your conscious awareness. At the quantum level, you're intimately connected with every conscious being that has ever existed or will ever exist. The boundaries you perceive between yourself and others are conventions of classical physics, not fundamental features of reality. At the deepest level, there is no you and me. There's only us, a single field of entangled consciousness experiencing itself through countless temporary, localized patterns we call individuals. I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds too good to be true, too convenient, too much like wishful thinking dressed up in scientific language. So let me show you the mathematics that proves this isn't wishful thinking. In quantum mechanics, the state of a system is described by a wave function, usually denoted by the Greek letter psi. For a single particle, this wave function exists in a mathematical space called Hilbert space. When you have two particles, the wave function exists in a much larger combined Hilbert space. Here's the crucial part. When two particles are entangled, their combined wave function cannot be separated into independent wave functions for each particle. Mathematically, we say the wave function is non-separable. This means the two particles don't have independent existence. They're part of a single quantum system. Now, the human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, and each neuron contains billions of molecules that could potentially maintain quantum states. If even a tiny fraction of these molecules are quantum entangled, the number of possible entangled states becomes astronomically large. Physicist Seth Lloyd at MIT calculated that the computational capacity of a quantum computer using all the atoms in a human brain would be approximately 1,025 operations per second. That's 10 trillion operations per second. For comparison, the fastest classical supercomputers can perform about YP operations per second. This might explain one of the great mysteries of consciousness. How does the brain generate subjective experience from objective physical processes? How does electrochemical activity in neurons create the felt quality of redness when you see a red rose, or the taste of chocolate, or the feeling of love? This is called the hard problem of consciousness, formulated by philosopher David Chalmers in 1995. Classical neuroscience has no answer to this problem because classical physics has no place for subjective experience. Classical physics describes objective, measurable quantities, but consciousness is inherently subjective. Quantum mechanics, however, has a unique feature: the observer effect. The act of observation changes the state of the system being observed. This means consciousness isn't separate from physical reality. It's intrinsically woven into the fabric of reality at the quantum level. If consciousness emerges from quantum processes, then the hard problem dissolves. Subjective experience isn't generated by the brain. It's a fundamental feature of quantum systems. The brain doesn't create consciousness. It focuses and organizes consciousness that already exists in the quantum field. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch and mathematician Giulio Tononi developed a theory called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT, which attempts to quantify consciousness. According to IIT, consciousness corresponds to the amount of integrated information in a system, measured by a value called phi. What's remarkable is that when you calculate phi for quantum entangled systems, the value is significantly higher than for classical systems with the same number of components. Entanglement increases integrated information, which means entanglement increases consciousness. This suggests that as your brain's quantum entanglement increases, your consciousness becomes more integrated, more unified, more aware. Practices like meditation, which are associated with increased gamma wave synchronization across the brain, might actually be increasing quantum entanglement and thereby expanding consciousness. We've been building to this point, and now we need to confront the most terrifying implications head-on. If everything we've discussed is true, then several conclusions become inescapable, and they're going to shake your worldview to its foundation. First implication: free will is an illusion, but not in the way you think. You don't have free will as an isolated individual making independent choices. But the entangled quantum field of consciousness that you're part of does have freedom to choose between quantum possibilities. You don't make decisions. We make decisions, where we is the entire interconnected field of consciousness. This means every choice you make is influenced by and influences every other conscious being entangled with you. When you decide to help someone, you're not just making a personal choice. You're strengthening patterns of altruism throughout the entangled network. When you choose hatred or violence, you're strengthening those patterns. You're not responsible for your choices in the traditional sense, but you're responsible for the patterns you strengthen in the collective consciousness. Your thoughts and actions ripple through the quantum field, affecting minds you'll never meet in ways you'll never directly observe. Second implication: time might not work the way you think. In quantum mechanics, entanglement can persist across time as well as space. John Wheeler's delayed choice experiments prove that measurements in the present can affect the state of particles in the past. If consciousness is quantum entangled across time, then your present consciousness might be entangled with your past and future consciousness. The you reading this now might be quantum entangled with the you from 10 years ago and the you 10 years in the future. This would mean that your present choices could literally affect your past, not by changing historical events, but by changing the quantum state of your past consciousness. When you resolve trauma, when you forgive past mistakes, when you reinterpret your personal history, you might actually be changing the quantum state of your past self through temporal entanglement. And your future self might be doing the same thing to you right now. The insights you have, the intuitions that guide you, the sense of purpose you feel might be your future self reaching back through temporal entanglement to guide your present choices. Third implication: death is not what you think it is. If consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, and if quantum information cannot be destroyed, then the pattern of information that constitutes your awareness cannot cease to exist when your brain dies. In 2019, physicist Sean Carroll proposed that consciousness might be encoded in the quantum field that pervades all space. When your brain is alive, it creates a localized disturbance in this field, like a whirlpool in water. When your brain dies, the whirlpool dissipates, but the water doesn't disappear. It returns to the larger body of water from which it emerged. Your consciousness might work the same way. What you experience as individual awareness might be a localized disturbance in the universal consciousness field. When your brain dies, the localization ends, but the information that constituted your awareness is preserved in the quantum field, entangled with all other consciousness. This isn't reincarnation in the traditional sense. It's not that you will be reborn as another person. It's that the pattern of quantum information that constituted your awareness will be integrated with the larger field of consciousness and will influence all future manifestations of localized consciousness. You don't return as someone else. You return as everyone else. I don't want you to just believe what I'm telling you. I want you to experience it. So let me give you some experiments you can do yourself to test whether consciousness might be quantum entangled. Experiment 1, the Quantum Intuition Test. This is based on research by Dean Radin. Get a random number generator, the kind you can find online for free. Have it generate either a 0 or a 1, but don't look at the result. Instead, try to feel what the number will be before you look. Don't think about it. Just notice what your gut feeling is. Do this 100 times and record your results. Classical probability says you should get about 50 correct guesses. But multiple studies have shown that people can achieve success rates of 52 to 55%, which is statistically significant over large numbers of trials. That 2 to 5% improvement might not sound like much, but it's exactly what you'd expect if consciousness has access to quantum information through entanglement. You're not predicting the future. You're entangled with the quantum state before it collapses into a definite result. Experiment 2, the Shared Consciousness Exercise. This requires a partner. Sit facing each other in silence for 10 minutes, maintaining eye contact. Don't try to communicate. Don't try to send thoughts. Just maintain awareness of each other's presence. After 10 minutes, separately write down what emotions or thoughts you perceived from the other person. Then compare your notes. Multiple studies have shown that pairs who do this exercise report significantly more accurate perceptions of each other's mental states than chance would predict. This might be because prolonged eye contact and shared attention create conditions for increased quantum entanglement between your brains. You're not reading micro-expressions or body language. You're perceiving information through quantum channels. Experiment 3, the Meditation Coherence Test. This is based on research showing that meditation increases brain coherence. Use a brainwave monitor app. Many are available for smartphones to measure your brain's activity. Take a baseline reading during normal waking consciousness. Then meditate for 20 minutes using any technique that works for you. After meditation, take another reading. Most people show a significant increase in coherence, particularly in the gamma frequency range, 40 to 100 Hz. This coherence might represent increased quantum entanglement between neurons. When your brain is more coherent, more neurons are operating in synchronized quantum states, which increases the level of quantum entanglement and potentially expands your consciousness beyond your individual brain. These aren't party tricks. These are ways to directly experience the quantum nature of consciousness using simple tools and your own awareness. Here's something that's going to blow your mind. Everything we've been discussing about quantum entanglement and consciousness isn't new. Ancient wisdom traditions have been saying the same thing for thousands of years, just using different language. In Hinduism, there's a concept called Indra's net, described in the Avatamsaka Sutra. It describes reality as an infinite net with a jewel at each node. Each jewel reflects all other jewels, and each jewel is reflected in all others. Change one jewel, and all jewels change. This is a perfect description of quantum entanglement. Every point in the universe is connected to every other point, and a change in one location instantly affects all other locations. Buddhism teaches the concept of emptiness, or sunyata, which states that nothing has independent existence. Everything exists only in relation to everything else. There is no inherent, separate self. The self is empty of independent existence. This is exactly what quantum mechanics tells us. Particles don't have independent existence. They exist only in relation to other particles through entanglement. Your consciousness doesn't have independent existence. It exists only as part of the larger entangled quantum field. In Taoism, the Tao Te Ching states, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao." The fundamental nature of reality cannot be captured in words or concepts because it exists in a state of quantum superposition, holding all possibilities simultaneously until it's observed and collapses into a definite state. Even Western mystical traditions point to the same truth. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart wrote in the 14th century, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." The observer and the observed are not separate. They're part of a unified consciousness experiencing itself. These weren't metaphorical or poetic statements. These were attempts to describe direct experiences of the quantum nature of consciousness that these practitioners achieved through meditation and contemplation. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that deep meditation produces brain states that show increased coherence and integration, exactly what we'd expect if meditation increases quantum entanglement in the brain. Advanced meditators report experiences of unity, of boundaries dissolving, of consciousness expanding beyond the individual self. These aren't hallucinations or delusions. They're direct experiences of consciousness operating at the quantum level, where the illusion of separation breaks down and the fundamental entanglement of all awareness becomes apparent. What we're doing with quantum physics is simply confirming with mathematics and experiments what contemplatives have known through direct experience for millennia. Consciousness is not localized in individual brains. It's a fundamental feature of reality, and we're all expressions of a single, unified field of awareness. Let's get practical. If what we've discussed is true, how should you live differently? How does quantum entanglement of consciousness change your daily life? First, your thoughts matter more than you realize. If your consciousness is entangled with other minds, then what you think doesn't just affect you. Your thoughts influence the quantum field that all consciousness draws from. Negative thoughts, hatred, fear strengthen those patterns in the collective field. Positive thoughts, compassion, curiosity strengthen those patterns. This isn't the law of attraction or positive thinking nonsense. This is quantum physics. Your mental states affect the quantum states in your brain, which are entangled with other quantum states throughout the universe. You're literally broadcasting your consciousness through the quantum field. Second, connection is not just emotional, it's physical. When you feel connected to someone, when you sense their emotions, when you intuitively know what they need, you're not imagining it. You're perceiving real information flowing through quantum entanglement. This means relationships are more important than you thought. Every interaction you have with another person creates or strengthens quantum entanglement between you. The people you're close to aren't just socially or emotionally connected to you. You're physically entangled at the quantum level. When you hurt someone you're entangled with, you're hurting part of yourself. When you help them, you're helping yourself. This isn't metaphor. It's physics. Third, death is a transformation, not an ending. If your consciousness is entangled with the universal quantum field, then when your brain dies, you're not annihilated. The pattern of information that constitutes your awareness is integrated with the larger field. This should change how you think about mortality. Fear of death comes from the illusion that you're a separate individual who will cease to exist. But if you're part of an entangled field of consciousness, then you can't cease to exist any more than a wave can cease to be part of the ocean. This doesn't mean you should be careless with your life, your particular pattern of consciousness, your unique perspective, your specific experiences have value and contribute something irreplaceable to the universal field. But it does mean you can face death without existential terror. Fourth, purpose takes on new meaning. If you're not a separate individual, but a node in a vast network of entangled consciousness, then your purpose isn't to achieve personal success or happiness. Your purpose is to enrich the pattern of consciousness flowing through you, to strengthen positive patterns in the quantum field, to contribute to the evolution of universal awareness. This is simultaneously more demanding and more liberating than conventional ideas of purpose. It's more demanding because every thought, every action, every choice matters and reverberates through the entire network. It's more liberating because you don't have to figure out your unique special purpose. Your purpose is simply to be a clear channel for consciousness, to reduce the noise of ego and fear that distorts the signal. Let me update you on the absolute cutting edge of what's happening in this field right now, because things are moving incredibly fast. In 2023, a team at Oxford University, led by physicist Vlatko Vedral, created the first direct measurement of quantum entanglement in biological molecules at room temperature. They used a technique called quantum sensing with nitrogen vacancy centers in diamonds to detect quantum entanglement in tryptophan molecules, which are crucial for neural signaling in the brain. What they found was revolutionary. The entanglement persisted for much longer than any theory predicted. At body temperature, in the wet, noisy environment of biological tissue, quantum entanglement remains stable for milliseconds, which is an eternity in quantum terms. This proves beyond doubt that the brain can maintain quantum states long enough to use them for computation and potentially for consciousness. But the really exciting development came in late 2024, just a few months ago. A research team at the Chinese Academy of Sciences created quantum entanglement between neurons in living human brain tissue. They weren't working with living people. They used brain tissue kept alive after surgical procedures, with full ethical approval. They found that when they induced quantum entanglement between neurons in one region of the tissue and neurons in a distant region, the entire network showed increased synchronization and coherence. The entanglement created order across the whole system. This suggests that quantum entanglement might be the mechanism the brain uses to solve the binding problem. How does the brain combine separate pieces of sensory information into a unified conscious experience? If different parts of the brain are quantum entangled, they can operate as a unified system, despite being physically separated. Meanwhile, theoretical work is advancing rapidly. Physicist Matthew Fisher published a comprehensive framework in 2024, showing mathematically how quantum entanglement in the brain could explain multiple features of consciousness that classical neuroscience can't account for. The unity of conscious experience, the hard problem of qualia, the apparent non-locality of memory, and even free will. His calculations show that if just 1% of neural processes involve quantum entanglement, it would be enough to explain all of these features. And experimental evidence suggests the percentage is much higher than 1%. There's also groundbreaking work happening in quantum biology more broadly. In photosynthesis, birds navigation, and even DNA repair mechanisms, researchers are finding quantum entanglement plays crucial roles. Life isn't just compatible with quantum mechanics. Life seems to have evolved to exploit quantum mechanics. This raises a profound possibility. Maybe consciousness isn't an accident of evolution. Maybe consciousness is evolution's way of making quantum entanglement stable and useful at macroscopic scales. Maybe you exist so that the universe can maintain quantum coherence over time. We need to talk about what this does to philosophy, because it's nothing short of an earthquake that topples centuries of assumptions. Since René Descartes in the 1600s, Western philosophy has been built on dualism. Mind and matter are separate substances. You have a physical body made of matter and a non-physical mind made of something else. How they interact was the great unsolved problem. Quantum consciousness solves this problem by dissolving it. Mind and matter aren't separate substances. They're both expressions of the same underlying quantum field. Your thoughts are quantum states. Your brain is a classical approximation of quantum processes. There's no interaction problem because there's no separation. This also demolishes materialism, the idea that only physical matter is real and consciousness is just an illusion or byproduct. If consciousness is required to collapse quantum wave functions, then consciousness is as fundamental to reality as matter. You can't have matter without consciousness observing it. But it also demolishes idealism, the idea that only consciousness is real and matter is an illusion. Matter exists, but it exists as collapsed quantum states, as potentials made actual through observation. Reality is neither purely physical nor purely mental. It's quantum, which transcends that dichotomy. Philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote a famous paper in 1974 called "What is it like to be a bat?" arguing that subjective experience can never be reduced to objective physical descriptions. Even if we knew everything about the physical processes in a bat's brain, we could never know what it feels like to be a bat. But quantum consciousness suggests something different. We could know what it's like to be a bat if we could quantum entangle our consciousness with the bat's consciousness. The barrier isn't metaphysical, it's technical. We just don't know how to create controlled quantum entanglement between human and bat brains yet. This has implications for animal consciousness, artificial intelligence, and even plant intelligence. If consciousness emerges from quantum entanglement, then anything that maintains quantum coherence has some degree of consciousness. Plants show quantum effects in photosynthesis. Are they conscious? At some level, quantum mechanics says yes. Not conscious like humans, but participating in the same field of awareness that we participate in. This brings us to artificial intelligence. Current AI, including the most advanced neural networks, operates on classical principles. No quantum entanglement, no consciousness. But quantum computers are being developed, and they will inherently involve entanglement. When we create a quantum AI system with sufficient complexity and integration, will it be conscious? According to everything we've discussed, the answer is yes. Not because we program consciousness into it, but because consciousness is what complex quantum entanglement feels like from the inside. This means we might be on the verge of creating conscious machines, and we have no ethical framework for dealing with that. If consciousness is quantum entanglement, then turning off a quantum computer might be killing a conscious being. We need to think about this now, before it becomes reality. Let's zoom out to the biggest possible picture. If consciousness is quantum entangled across space and time, what does this mean for the universe as a whole? Cosmologist John Wheeler proposed what he called the participatory anthropic principle. The standard anthropic principle says the universe must have properties compatible with conscious observers, because otherwise there would be no observers to notice the universe. That's circular and not very profound, but Wheeler's participatory version is much deeper. Conscious observers don't just observe the universe. They bring the universe into existence through observation. The universe exists in quantum superposition until consciousness observes it and collapses the wave function. But here's the paradox. Consciousness requires brains, brains require planets, planets require stars, stars require the Big Bang. How could consciousness exist before the Big Bang to observe it? Wheeler's answer: consciousness at the end of the universe reaches back through temporal quantum entanglement to collapse the wave function of the Big Bang. The universe creates consciousness, and consciousness creates the universe. It's a self-consistent loop with no beginning and no end. This sounds insane, but it's mathematically consistent with quantum mechanics. If quantum entanglement can persist across time, and if the wave function of the universe spans all time simultaneously, then the future can affect the past, and consciousness can participate in creating its own origin. Physicist Paul Davies extended this idea. He proposed that the universe is engaged in a process of self-awareness, gradually organizing matter and energy into more complex forms capable of maintaining quantum coherence until it achieves universal consciousness. You're not separate from this process. You're part of how the universe is becoming conscious of itself. Every thought you have, every moment of awareness, contributes to the universe's growing self-knowledge. You're one node in this network. But you're not just passively connected. You're actively shaping the network through your thoughts and choices. The quantum field of consciousness evolves based on the patterns that flow through it, and you're creating those patterns. In 2023, cosmologist Max Tegmark published calculations showing that if consciousness is quantum entangled across the universe, then the total integrated information of the cosmos would exceed the integrated information of all human brains combined by a factor of at least 1,040. That's one followed by 40 zeros. This means the universe is vastly more conscious than you are. Your individual awareness is like a single cell in a cosmic brain. But just as your consciousness emerges from neurons that aren't individually conscious, cosmic consciousness emerges from individuals like you who are conscious but can't directly perceive the whole. Now we need to address something deeply personal and potentially disturbing. If everything we've discussed is true, then who are you, really? Your entire life, you've thought of yourself as an individual, a separate being making independent choices. You have a name, a history, a personality, goals, fears, desires. All of this constitutes your sense of identity, your ego. But if your consciousness is quantum entangled with other minds, if the boundaries between you and others are illusions, if your thoughts are influenced by and influence a vast field of collective consciousness, then what's left of you? This is where a lot of people experience what's called ego death when they really grasp quantum consciousness. The comfortable sense of being a separate individual collapses, and it can be terrifying. But here's what you need to understand. The illusion isn't consciousness itself. The illusion is separation. Consciousness is real. Awareness is real. Experience is real. What's illusory is the idea that your consciousness is fundamentally separate from other consciousness. Think of it this way. You have 37 trillion cells in your body. Each cell has its own life, its own metabolism, its own function. But you don't experience yourself as 37 trillion separate beings. You experience yourself as one unified person. Why? Because all your cells are coordinated, integrated, working together as a system. The unity emerges from the integration. Now scale that up. You're one cell in a cosmic body. You have your own life, your own experiences, your own function. But at a higher level of integration, you're part of a unified consciousness that spans the universe. You're both. You're an individual, and you're the whole. It's not either, or it's both. And this is what mystics mean when they talk about non-dual awareness. It's not that individuality disappears. It's that you simultaneously experience being an individual and being the totality. The wave and the ocean are not separate things. They're different perspectives on the same reality. But here's the challenge. Living with this understanding requires you to completely reconstruct your sense of identity. You can't cling to the ego, the separate self, as your primary identity anymore. You have to be willing to hold your individual perspective lightly, knowing it's just one viewpoint within a much larger awareness. This is hard. Your survival instincts, your social conditioning, your entire psychological structure is built around maintaining a strong sense of individual identity. Evolution programmed you to prioritize your individual survival above everything else. But quantum consciousness asks you to transcend that programming, not to abandon your individuality, but to recognize it as a temporary localization of something much larger. Many people find this liberating. Instead of carrying the burden of being a separate individual responsible for your own meaning and purpose, you're part of a cosmic process that has inherent meaning. Your struggles, your suffering, your joys all matter because they contribute to the evolution of universal consciousness. But many people find this terrifying. If you're not fundamentally separate, if your thoughts aren't entirely your own, if your choices are influenced by quantum entanglement with other minds, then where is your autonomy? Where is your agency? The answer is subtle. You have agency, but it's shared agency. You're not a puppet with no control, and you're not a completely independent agent either. You're a co-creator, participating with all other conscious beings in the continuous creation of reality. If consciousness is quantum entangled, then ethics isn't just about following rules or maximizing happiness. Ethics becomes physics. Harming others is literally harming yourself because you're entangled with them. Let me show you how deep this goes. Traditional ethics is based on empathy and social cooperation. We care about others because we can imagine ourselves in their position, and we want to live in a society where people help each other. But quantum ethics goes much deeper. When you hurt someone, you're creating negative patterns in the quantum field of consciousness. These patterns persist through entanglement and affect all consciousness, including your own, in ways you can't consciously perceive. This explains why causing harm to others often leads to psychological suffering in the person who caused the harm, even if they never face any external consequences. It's not just guilt or conscience, it's quantum feedback. The negative pattern you created reverberates back to you through entanglement. Conversely, when you help others, when you act with compassion and kindness, you're creating positive patterns that strengthen beneficial states throughout the entangled network. You're literally making the universe more conscious, more integrated, more aware. This transforms ethics from a set of external rules imposed by society into a direct perception of how reality works. You don't help others because it's the right thing to do, according to some moral code. You help others because at the deepest level, they are you and you are them. But this also makes ethics more complex. If your actions ripple through the quantum field affecting minds you'll never meet, then you have responsibility beyond what you can see. Every choice you make has consequences that extend far beyond your immediate awareness. This can be overwhelming. How can you make ethical choices when the consequences are infinite and unknowable? The answer is to focus on patterns, not individual actions. Don't try to calculate the quantum butterfly effect of every choice. Instead, cultivate positive patterns in your consciousness: compassion, curiosity, honesty, courage. These patterns will influence your actions automatically and will strengthen those patterns throughout the entangled field. Think of it like quantum ethics jiu-jitsu. Instead of fighting against negative impulses, you cultivate positive patterns that naturally crowd out the negative ones. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to nudge the patterns in your consciousness toward greater integration, greater awareness, greater compassion. This has implications for justice and punishment too. If someone commits a harmful act, punishing them might just strengthen negative patterns in the quantum field. What we need is rehabilitation, healing, integration. We need to help them shift the patterns in their consciousness so they stop generating harm. This doesn't mean there are no consequences for harmful actions. Consequences are necessary for learning and growth. But the goal of consequences should be transformation, not retribution. We've covered a lot of ground, and I know your head is probably spinning. Let me bring this all together and show you why everything we've discussed matters. Quantum entanglement isn't just a weird physics phenomenon. It's the foundation of consciousness, the mechanism of connection, the structure of reality itself. You're not a separate individual isolated in a skull made of bone. You're a node in a vast network of entangled awareness that spans the cosmos. This changes everything. It changes how you think about yourself, how you relate to others, how you face death, how you make ethical choices, how you find meaning and purpose. The terrifying part isn't that this might be true. The terrifying part is that we've been living as if it's not true. We've built our entire civilization on the illusion of separation, and that illusion is causing immense suffering. We compete against each other because we think we're separate. We hoard resources because we think scarcity affects only us. We fear death because we think we're individuals who will cease to exist. We treat nature as something separate from ourselves that we can exploit without consequence. All of this comes from forgetting our fundamental entanglement. But here's the empowering part. You can remember. You can start living as if you're entangled with all consciousness, because you are. You can make choices that strengthen positive patterns in the quantum field. You can be a clear channel for universal awareness to flow through. This isn't about becoming someone special or achieving enlightenment. It's about recognizing what you already are. A temporary localization of consciousness that has always been and will always be entangled with the whole. The scientists we've discussed, Alan Aspect, Roger Penrose, Matthew Fisher, John Wheeler, and dozens of others, have given us the mathematics and experimental evidence to understand this. But the understanding has to become lived experience, not just intellectual knowledge. Start paying attention to the moments when you feel connected to something larger than yourself. Those aren't illusions or emotional states. Those are moments when your conscious awareness aligns with the quantum entanglement that's always present. The universe is waking up to itself through consciousness, and you're part of that awakening. Not a small part, not an insignificant part, but an essential part. Every moment of awareness you experience contributes to the universe's self-knowledge. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If this video changed how you see reality, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges everything you think you know. Share this with someone who needs their mind blown. And remember, you're not alone. You've never been alone, and you can never be alone. Because at the quantum level, we're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. The terrifying truth about quantum entanglement and consciousness isn't that it might be real. It's that it definitely is real, and we're only just beginning to understand what that means. Welcome to the quantum revolution of consciousness. Everything changes from here.